Hello and welcome to the start of our Fast and Furious series. Now, Fast and Furious is a series that's always been near and dear to my heart. I've always been a car guy, I love cars, and I remember seeing the sixth one and every film onwards in cinemas. I saw 6, and I remember seeing 7, 8 and Hobbs and Shaw. I remember when the trailers came out for Hobbs and Shaw and for Fast and Furious 9. I wasn't following trailers when the trailers for 6, 7 and 8 came out, but when we get to I have some certain little little series memories I want to share about some of the films, but there's one I do want to particularly share about this specific film, the first one, and that is that let me just grab the DVD. And that is that this particular film, and that is that this film in particular was, I remember I had a copy of my aunt, when I first got into this series, I had a copy of the 5th one because my aunt had owned it. I think it was around the time 6 was about to come out, maybe a bit before 6 had come out, and my aunt had a copy of the 5th one, which I actually own now because I took them and never gave it back. But my aunt had a copy of the 5th one, and I think it was shortly before 6 had come out, and my nan had bought, I think I asked her to buy 6 on DVD, but she came back with the first one. And at the time I wasn't actually old enough to watch it. It was 15, so it just sat gathering dust on my nan's shelf for quite a while. And then and also I also couldn't see the second one because in the UK at least, both the first and second ones were rated 15, so I couldn't see the first one, but I had it, and it just sat on my shelf gathering dust for a while. And I mean, the artwork is fine enough on it, but I then began to build up a collection. I have all of them on DVD from 1 through 8, and I have Hobbs and Shaw on Blu-ray. And I didn't watch them on the DVDs because DVD's not the best quality, but I did watch them on Now TV, which I don't know if you know this, but movies on Now TV tend to be 5 to 10 minutes shorter than the cuts you can find elsewhere. Just my example of this is that obviously I was doing this series as an example. I looked up how long it was on Now TV, and it was 1 hour. I think it was 1 hour 42 minutes on Now TV, but on like Google Play and stuff, it was like 1 hour 50 something. Like, hang on, it was a bit longer. It was definitely longer on like Google Play, which is just a problem I have specifically with Now TV. But there's nothing I can do about it because unfortunately, the only other one of these films that isn't on Now TV is the 7th one, but that's leaving, and that's on Netflix, but that's leaving Netflix to jump to Now TV with the 8th one, which is just painful. But I own 8 and I own Hobbs and Shaw on digital, so I'm going to watch those two, that version, because I know that's the actual legit version of it. But there, that's fun. But yeah, just this series as a whole has always been one that I've loved, and going back and just having to find the trailers for each film reminds me that as much as I always thought that Fast and Furious, the one for 2009, was the worst one, and I didn't particularly like Tokyo Drift, looking back at the trailers for all of them to search for this series, I found myself just thinking how good the whole series as a whole is. I just looked up now that the Fast and the Furious on Now TV is 1 hour 42 minutes, but on, we can buy it on Amazon Prime and put it on most other places, is 1 hour 46 minutes. So I don't know what it is that's been cut out, but I assume it's probably credits or something, but I don't actually know. So, but as I look back, it's one of the series that's not Marvel or James Bond that I have the fondest memories of from around 2013, 2012 sort of time, which is fun. I came into the world the same year the second one came out, so it has this very distinct early 2000s style that I really, as much as I wasn't in existence or a small child teenager in that era, it just appeals to me. I suppose as much as I didn't grow up in that era, I grew up with the music of that era because my mum loved the music of that era and she played it to me when I was very little. So I know I know it just has that very distinct early 2000s feel, like Spider-Man stuff. But and I always find myself, because there's an actor in this film called Rick Yoon who was also in Die Another Day. I often find myself comparing those two films purely to that factor, and obviously just clearly this film had a much lower budget than Die Another Day, because Die Another Day doesn't feel like it was released a year after this film, because this film, it doesn't look dated per se, but it definitely has that, you know what I mean? It has that distinct 2000s feel, and I love it for that, and the cars and everything. And it's, again, like, as this series goes on, we learn that a lot of people are divided on certain parts of the series. You have the first three, which are pure just car racing films about the cars and car people doing car things, and then you have four, which is just this in-between film that's not quite the heist action flicks the current ones are, but it's also definitely not a street racing film. It's more of a gang film, I want to say, almost a Mexican sort of on the one sort of a race and chase film, which is a GTA reference, but go away. But it's more like that sort of thing. But then five is a heist film. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are sort of save the world, big over the top action movies, which are fine as they are. But I do have to admit, when it comes to my enjoyment of the series, I do always enjoy the first two, and the third. I'm not going to comment on the third right now because I don't have an opinion, but I don't want to say I do or don't like it because I haven't seen it in a while. I've been saying I like it recently, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm not confident enough to say my actual opinions of it. But yeah, I mean, this film, great actors, talented cast, of course, Vin Diesel, the late great Paul Walker as well stars in this, and those two I think just shine here brilliantly. Acting wise, they are genuinely steal the show. Every actor here is brilliant, and as much as it's obviously a low budget movie, these actors aren't low budget at all. They're actually very talented people, and obviously to see them do so well here is brilliant. Obviously all the characters it does from the moment you step into this world, it feels like one big family, and I love that. And it's always felt almost like a family film, but not in the you know what I mean, like as in you feel part of the family when watching it, and it is just one of those it's one of those films where it couldn't have been as good as if it had any higher budget. It's the perfect lower budget film, and for that reason I love it. I've always loved cars and street racing, and it's brilliant. Again, as an action flick, the action's decent, but it's not the focus of the story. It's more about the relationship between Dom and Brian, and how obviously as the story progresses you clearly see that Brian, who we find out part of the film, is a cop, and but Brian has to obviously deal with the whole thing that he's obviously gotten close with both Dom's sister, and is actually becoming quite a good friend of Dom himself. So he has to deal with the fact that he has to bring Toretto down, and he just doesn't want to do it because obviously the relationships he's garnered with these people, and we see how that affects him in the next one because he's the protagonist of the next one, because none of the other guys come back. I don't know why they didn't come back. I'm sure I read the Wikipedia article or some shit. It would explain why they never came back. But yeah, again, it is one of those films where, I mean, brilliant cast, brilliant score, brilliant script. I mean, it's not... Is it the greatest movie ever made? No. Is it the best film in this franchise? That's hard, because for me, the best ones are 1, 2, 6 and 7 for me. And I know that as a fact. Because 5, I have this weird feeling with 5. 8, I just can't dig 8. 4 is just weird for me. And 3, like I said, I'm not going to touch that until it comes to actually watching that film for this series, because I haven't seen it in a long time, and I don't want to say I do or don't like it because I haven't seen it in a while. This one, the second one particularly, I know my feelings of these films pretty well because I've seen them enough times to know these films are brilliant. Therefore, for anyone who loves cars, this is perfect for you. And I really relate to the character of Jesse because he has ADD and I have ADHD, so it's a similar sort of thing. And I really do relate to that character, and I relate to the fact that he found something to channel his enthusiasm in, and it keeps, that I can really relate to. For me personally, Jesse's one of my favourite characters because I easily relate to him because of, that sort of thing. To find a thing that you enjoy so much that you can name every little fact or fiction, you can ask anyone around me, I can do that easily for several things. So, and I obviously Jesse can do that for cars, and it's brilliant to see. I wish I could name as many things about cars as Jesse can, and obviously he impresses Brian because there's the scene where he goes on about, phone calls, am I right? But yeah, again, it's just a film that obviously I relate to Jesse as a character, and I love to see characters like that put on screen, and I often feel the same way he does. Obviously the scene where he basically gets shot towards the end, not the getting shot part because I'm not dead, but you know what I mean, the part where he just says, where if you listen closely to the dialogue he says before that, he says stuff like, I don't know what I'm doing, please can you help me, man? And I feel like that sometimes, and I feel like I don't have a Dom in my life. I mean I literally do. That's a funny thing, but I'm not going to delve into that because that's personal stuff, but I feel connected to this. I mean, I've followed these films for a while, and you know what I mean. They're all. I feel connected to these set of characters in a way that I haven't felt connected to a character since Iron Man or James Bond. You know, it's one of those film series where if you watch them over and over again, you really feel a connection with not only yourself and the characters, but each character in it. And you know, obviously Dom says, "I don't have friends, I've got family." You really feel that family connection, and here is where that starts. And obviously, so many of the characters here never come back ever again. You see them. Only the people that you do see again are Dom, Letty, Mia, and Brian. Oh, and Vince comes back in 5. But other than that, no one else ever comes back from this film. And pretty much the same for the next one. There's only 3 people that come back to the series after 2, and then with 3, that's an interesting. But yeah, I mean, again, I always feel those first 3 films are where the series struggles because it's always juggling the cast, and there isn't actually, when you look at those 3 films, there isn't actually one person who's in all 3 of them, because Brian's in 1 and 2, but he's not in 3. Dom's not is in 1, but he has a cameo at the end of 3, and obviously 1 has this main cast that we all know. The second one has, the second one has the cast that has, Brian and introduction of a lot of new characters, but no one else from this film, from the first one, is in the second one. And the third one, there's absolutely no one from any previous films in there, so it's a bit like, how am I supposed to relate to these characters if I don't actually, know any of them at all, which is what 3's problems have, is that it's setting up a completely new set of characters that none of us know, but we'll get to 3 when we get to it. But again, like I said, this series has come a long way. I'm happy to be here reviewing it, and obviously it's 20 years old this year, so obviously this film came out 20 years ago. So it's come a long way since then, but it's an amazing first installment, and it really gets the blood pumping, and Race Wars is brilliant. There's so many scenes I adore. The shot of them at the end racing the cars through the thing, that's brilliant. I love the scene where Brian admits he's a cop to Mia. That's a brilliant scene. There's a lot of scenes that I generally do. I love the way. Again, all the characters are so good. Really, the protagonist of this film is Brian, if you ask me. But again, I love all the characters here, all the cars. The cars are wonderful, and so many cars in this film really set this. There's a great video by Donut Media that tells you how Fast and Furious created modern car culture, and I do believe that's true. A lot of the cars in this film are iconic cars. For this film, at least, you've got the Eclipse, the Supra, Dom's Chargers here. You have Dom's MX-7 Dom's MX-7 that he drives for most of this film. Leon's car. There's an older Skyline here as well. There's a lot of very famous and popular street racing cars that really came to fame here, and obviously when you see them in their iconic paint jobs from this film, it is, something to look back on with, amazement to see that these cars became iconic because of this franchise. And for some of for the Eclipse, the Supra, and the Charger, it was this film that brought them into the limelight. The next film brings up the Skyline, the classic GTR Skyline, which is one of my favourite cars ever made, and I'm so happy that it's Brian that gets to drive that car. As the series goes on, they each have cars that make their own, and I do still feel that I find more enjoyment out of these classic, the original 3 films that focus on street racing, because I've always loved cars, and as much as I love them more modern ones, and I think I think Vin Diesel pours his heart into them, and especially more recently with, he and Paul Walker were clearly very close friends from the beginning, and obviously I do know from what I've seen in interviews and stuff and heard about him, I think the loss of Paul Walker really hit him the hardest out of anyone in that cast. I think, not to say they didn't hit others, but you can tell even on the screen how much these two have chemistry and are obviously friends in real life, were friends in real life. So I know it must have hit him the hardest when Paul passed away. But again, honouring him by continuing the series is the best you can do, and I think that moment at the end of, I never thought I'd be able to say a Fast and Furious film made me cry, but 7 did, and I'm glad it did, because that was so good. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself because I love these films. Can you tell that I have more to say about these films than I did the Marvel films, which is really stupid because I do love those films. But yeah, no, The Fast and the Furious is a brilliant start to a franchise I've always adored. I love all the scenes where they see the trucks, the action's so well done. Rob Cohen, very talented, and I think what really makes it is the low budget look of the whole thing, and it's brilliant. I think the whole low budget look brings it. But there is one more thing that I need to talk about this film that I can't go on talking about, and obviously it's also a bigger part of the whole franchise, but I think here is where it peaks, and that's the music of the Fast and the Furious. Now, I think each film has a brilliant soundtrack. I've even got if you go to my Spotify playlist, I've got it's my Spotify playlist, my Spotify profile. You click on my link tree and then go to the Spotify profile. I have a playlist dedicated to the best tracks from the Fast and Furious series. It has everything from the first film all the way through to 8, and I think when you look at that playlist, I think 90% of the tracks are from the first one, and that's because the first one has the best soundtrack in the whole series. I think, honestly, I have to admit, the second one has some great songs, but select ones. The third one has some select great songs as well, and so does 4, 5. I think if any other film comes close to soundtrack-wise, it would have to be 7, personally, although I do love We Own It from 6. And that's the thing, here, music-wise, this film is just the ultimate definitive early 2000s soundtrack. It mixes early 2000s techno, early 2000s rock, and early 2000s rap, or should I say late 90s, early 2000s rock, late 90s, early 2000s rap, and late 90s and early 2000s techno to just build this ultimate movie soundtrack for the 2000s. It's brilliant. BT's score as well, Brian Translute does the score here, and that's where the techno element comes in, as well as some other tracks like organic audio in the house scene. I think one of my favourite pieces of dialogue ever said in the whole film is when Vince says, "Yo, what, Dom, why'd you bring the Buster back?" And then Dom goes, "Because the Buster brought me back." And something like that. I think he says, "Because the Buster kept me out of handcuffs. The Buster brought me back. He didn't just run back to the fort." Which I think is a brilliant dialogue. But still, again, music-wise, this film is the peak of the franchise. There is no getting better than this soundtrack. So many amazing songs. But obviously, soundtrack-wise, songs, it's a mix of rap and rock, which is brilliant. And it's all placed perfectly throughout the film. And it also has 2 soundtrack albums, the Fast and Furious original motion picture soundtrack, and more Fast and Furious, which is another album. And then, obviously, the score was never released for this film, but there's a channel, I will probably link him in the description, because I found him today while watching this film, and I think, he's the only that channel is the only place where I've been able to actually find the score for 2 Fast and Furious, and he has the full score for the first one. So that channel's called Fast and Furious FM. I'm going to link him in the description, and when I link the track for this film and probably the next one for use in the background, that'll be from his channel, because I trust that channel really. I know I try to go for auto-generated stuff. If you see those in the description, it's usually the auto-generated versions if I can find them. But obviously for the first 2 here, I can't do that. For the third one onwards, or for the third one, from 3 all the way through to 5, I can do that. But 6, there isn't specifically a score available for it. But for 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8, and Hobbs and Shaw, I can all just do auto-generated ones. But for these 2, I'm going to be using Fast and Furious FM. So yeah, I appreciate that guy's efforts in putting out the only place on the internet where I can find the 2 Fast and Furious original motion picture score by David Arnold, who, if you don't know who David Arnold is, he is a very prominent figure for James Bond. He composed a lot of Bond films, which probably, if you watch my James Bond reviews, that's why I say that. But yeah, this film is, it's a brilliant film. If you love cars, this is going to be one of your favourite films. If you don't like cars, stay the fuck away, because you just really won't like this film. If you like cars mildly, you're not into it, oh, that's a nice looking car, you'll still find enjoyment out of this film. But if you really like cars, you'll love this film. And if you don't like cars at all, you'll hate this film. So yeah, but it's a brilliant film. I adore its efforts, and obviously a lot of people grew up watching this film. It's an icon, and I love it too. I think it set a precedent, and I think it was successful enough to get itself going and lead to the next film, which came out in the year I was born. So I suppose that has a little connection to me, I suppose. But yeah, this has been my review of the Fast and the Furious. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I may put up the 2 Fast and Furious review. I may not. I've got some things I have to do tomorrow, so I may or may not put that review up. If it's not, then I can only apologise. Obviously, I was originally scheduling to do my Thorpe Park Resort CD soundtrack review for the second channel in between the last series and this Fast and Furious series, but I've decided to then push that to, so I'm doing Fast and Furious now, then I'm doing Mission Impossible, then I'm doing Saw, and after Saw, when I've not got any more series to do that I've planned out yet, I'm going to then do that review then. So obviously I've pushed it back a bit, but it shouldn't be too long. So it should be in about 3-4 weeks, I suppose. But yeah, thanks for watching my first review of the Fast and Furious series. I'll see how this is doing, because views-wise, the other ones, it did alright, but my Bond reviews did a lot better. I love all the comments. I know I'm not getting many, but the people who do leave comments, I do appreciate them, and I read all of them. Hence why I heart most of them. That come up in my thing. Not every comment comes up, but I do check the comments in my dashboard regularly. So do leave a comment if you enjoy it. I mean, I love reading all the comments. I've loved seeing people. Some people have written comments about how they enjoyed certain films when they were little and stuff, and I love hearing all that stuff. So keep commenting, guys. I know I'm not big, but if you do want to leave a comment, be my guest. Tell me your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and this has been 20 minutes, so you can tell I'm enthusiastic about this series. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.